you doing?
She blinded me with science. Good heavens, Miss Sakamoto, you're beautiful.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to SAMPS webinar series, How to Leverage Interactivity and Maximize Audience Attendance and Engagement. And hopefully that little bit of music got you going and a little bit engaged already as we get started. Today, we're going to tackle the topic of keeping people engaged during online meetings. Some of the things that you'll take away from this are you'll discover up-to-the-minute strategies that professionals use professional meeting hosts are using to engage. Learn some simple ways to modify your session length and delivery of maximum effectiveness in a virtual environment, and experience firsthand techniques to get engaged and judge for yourself. My name is Mark Haas. I'm CEO and president of Zarstead Inc., and I have been involved in SAMPS for over 8 years, and I'm currently a member of the board. Before we get started, some housekeeping items to talk about. This webinar is recorded and we'll post it on our website after the event in case you want to come back to it or tell your friends about it. It's also an interactive webinar, so we're encouraging you to share your camera if you already haven't done so. As we start, though, everyone will be muted to reduce background noise. So if you do have a question, you can use the raise your hand button and the reactions at the bottom of the screen, or you can type a question in the chat and we'll get to it there. I'd also like to introduce Bonnie Sepkowski, president of Stellar Meetings and Events, and she is one of the original members of SAMPS and is currently a board member as well. Bonnie?
Good morning. Nice to see everybody. Just as a quick introduction, I have been with SAMPS for 8 years. And for the past year, I've been wearing my COVID mullet. I hope you are all wearing your COVID mullets today. That's hair done in the front, but not the back, and dressed only from the waist up.
Great. You know, Bonnie, you and I have worked in SAMPS meetings for the past 8 years, and I realized, we need to engage with clients when we're on site in meetings. But how do we translate those connections in a virtual environment that we've all been trying to do over the last year or so?
Well, we can't be together now, but we can strive for the next best thing. The problem is that we really need to exercise our flabby connecting skills. I went to a party the other night. For the first time, we were all vaccinated. It was wonderful, except hugging people felt really weird. So Zoom fatigue is real. We're over being talking heads, and we need to find a way to reconnect with one another before we go live again and start to engage our brains in more interactive ways.
So in doing that, how do we get our clients and employees excited about going to yet another virtual meeting?
It's going to have to be different from what we're doing now. As I said, we've got Zoom fatigue, and getting and keeping people's attention is harder than it was a year ago when we were used to having normal conversations. And just like a live meeting, you have to have a hook to get them to say yes to attending, get them to not click that all dangerous leave button on the bottom. You have to have some way to get them to want to show up. And whether that's a tasting or a virtual museum visit or a cooking class, it's an endless list of things we can be doing.
So when you have a lot of people, can't we just put people into smaller virtual breakout rooms and let them talk and discuss things like they would be in a conference room?
Yeah, we can, but we have to be strategic about it. You can't just drop people into a room. Think of your breakout rooms like right at this point, kind of as a virtual hotel bar. That's when the conversations are going to happen. So give them a topic, give them something to talk about so it's less awkward. So why don't we just do that right now? Your subject is something that nobody in the work world might know about you. And I'll bring you back 60 seconds before it's over. You'll be in there for just a few minutes. 60 seconds before it is over, you'll see a pop-up that says you're coming back, and that's your cue, and I'll see you back here in a couple minutes.
For those of you who are still in the main room with me, you should see a join link that you have to accept in order to join the breakout rooms that you are supposed to be headed to. So if you don't see that, you can take yourself, or you can message me in the chat, and I'll make sure and get you into a room. Jack, it looks like you haven't, we got Jack, Brian, and Andrew. If you want to click accept. Jack, I'm going to send you a message again. And Andrew, I resent your message. And Gina, it looks like you might be, oh, there's Gina, okay. Brian, I'm going to resend your message. And go ahead and click accept that if you could. And Andrew, we've got, it looks like you're the only one left. Go ahead and in the chat, if you're having trouble, let me know. Andrew, I just sent you a message again. And Brian, I'll try one last time, resending you a message. If not, we're only gonna be a few minutes more so you can hang out here until we restart. Until everybody, oh, Andrew. No worries, Andrew. No, it's only 10 after 11, Bonnie. You gotta stretch.
No, just the breakout session.
Hey, Bonnie.
Hi, guys. Hey, Stephen. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Hey, everybody.
I think it's a super mullet you got there, darling.
You love it?
Super. Oh, yeah. You're like Dolly Parton.
It's the full body of like Dolly Parton. I don't know what to say to that.
No, I wouldn't say anything about you.
No, there's nothing I can say to
No,
that.
absolutely not. I shouldn't have said it. I won't say that. That's terrible.
You forget we're not on a board call where all bets are off.
Yeah, I guess. Hey, Mark Hosler, was Mark on the call still?
You
There we
better
go.
be.
Back.
Okay.
Sorry, we had a very engaging discussion.
Mark, you and I need to have an offline conversation. I've just been cornered by so many of your colleagues. It's been hilarious. It's absolutely.
I'm going to hear about it after lunch, I guess, when I get back to the office.
It's good. Absolutely wonderful.
Did you get anything juicy, Stephen?
Oh yeah, on Mark, obviously, but I can't talk about that.
We'll talk
obviously.
afterwards.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah, yeah.
recording, by the way, please.
Yeah.
Mark, you need to mute yourself you need to mute yourself in one spot. We're getting an echo from you.
Okay, I'll mute.
So, not you, Stephen.
Great.
You're fine.
All right.
Mark's echoing. You're perfect just as you are, sir.
I'm only on one. So
It's better now. Whatever was happening is over.
okay, great.
Okay, we're back, everybody.
talk
Everybody
about
mute
that?
yourself, please, to get rid of that echo. And so what we just did is so important for team building and also for client meetings. Just take a couple minutes and chat and get to know each other a little bit, because that's what we don't get anymore. Just a small example of what we're missing in the day-to-day.
And I know too that that's what I miss too. And that's one of the reasons we started some of these virtual just networking sessions, kind of like those coffee breaks, that the hallway discussions you'd have if you were in between meetings or whatever, just catching up with somebody. It's difficult to do when you're in a meeting like this. People aren't willing to talk as much, or if they do have a break, they're going away from their camera. They're not being able to do that. So that was great. But how do we even get this closer feeling in a virtual meeting? We have live meetings, but not the weekly meeting I have in my office, but the kind that you create. So how do we do that? How do we recreate that?
Well, even in the ones you have in your office, because you still want people to retain the information you're sharing. And one of the things that I see lacking in the virtual meetings is what we call chunking. And that's breaking up the meeting into pieces that your brain can easily process. So the best example I have of this is your phone number or your social security number. It's that dash, right? You know your number, 732-239-7933. We all say it exactly the same way. Nobody says 732-2397 because you can't remember it. It's the dashes are what allows that to stay in your brain. It's the dashes. So the breakout is the dash. The team building activity is the dash. And we're chunking that. You chunk your social security number. For the US people, there's not one of us that hasn't known our social security number by heart since we were like 11. And it's the dashes that make us remember it. Otherwise, it's just a stream of numbers. And if you try to say your phone number without the dashes or do them 5 at a time, it screws up your brain. So those dashes are everything. They give your brain this little pause. And I'm bad at numbers, so it's important. Chunking is everything. Dashes are the brain breaks that we absolutely need. So an example is if you've got an intense data dump. So you have a meeting that is just full of numbers and information and graphs. Those meetings still have to happen. So how do you chunk that? Picture the news or a variety show. You've got a talking head, you've got demonstrations, you've got video, you've got your man on the street. You've got interviews. That's why we're doing this interview style, because nobody wants to listen to me talk for an hour. I don't want to listen to me talk. Many of you have listened to me talk for an hour. I'm not going to do that to you. But every 8 or 10 minutes or so, you should be breaking things up. You should be chunking it. And if you have any extra time, even 5 minutes, You can throw in, I like to call it a neurological palate cleanser. So now for something completely different for my Monty Python fans, we're going to make a smoothie. And the reason for this is not because we need a smoothie, but it's because we need to be doing something different and we need to engage our senses in a way that we don't in a meeting. So you can get your team together, have them just get the ingredients and then just do this together. It's a couple of minutes. Here, my vitamins. It's a couple of minutes out of your meeting. It takes 0 time, but it gives you something to do with your hands, with your senses. You can smell the mint and the ginger. You can, it's a break. So I've lost my lid. I have found my lid. So now I think it's a really good time to give you the real takeaway of the meeting before we really get started. The one thing that's going to matter more than anything else. Mark, you know what I'm going to do. And that's really the whole point of everything we're doing, right? So now we've had a break. We have a smoothie. You can, I wasn't muted, it was a joke. So it's a quick, easy, free, non-distracting way to chunk your meeting, great with your staff. It gives you a way to distract, and then you can jump right into content again. But now your brain has had time to absorb. And all of these things are good for you. They're good for your mind. How's your smoothie, David?
My smoothie, my latte with extra foam is quite smooth. Yes, thank you.
We could do that next time. We do coffee tastings too. So while we're drinking our smoothies, let's have Mark talk a little bit about SAMPS and who we are and why we're here.
Exactly. While we're doing that, I just want to take a break and tell you a little bit about us. Actually, what is SAMPS? Sales and Marketing Professionals in Science. We're the first and only organization dedicated to sales and marketing professionals in the life science industry. We were founded in 2012. SAMPS exists to connect and empower sales and marketing professionals in the life sciences and applied research to grow professionally. We have annual meetings and networking and webinar events that we do all the time. And we really want you to go to our website, samps.org, to take a look at some of the things that we do. One of the things is the annual meetings that we're going to try to return in 2021. And our networking events and our webinars that we have currently going on right now.
Thank you, Mark. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to say or share? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you're interested. I've lost my participants.
Hey, Bonnie, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I already had an engaged session in the breakout room with some of the folk on the call here. I'm interested to know what other people have done in their organizations in the last 12 months to make meetings more engaging, or what's been done to help meetings move forward in their ability to engage and frankly, increase even like the humanization of meetings, because that's a challenge I feel that we've all sort of suffered, even like, and it's a matter of time, isn't it? We've had that long without meeting each other. I mean, Bonnie, when did I last see you?
2 years.
Well, not that long, but a while anyway. But it's too long, and it's not natural, it's not normal. And I'm interested to know what other people have done. We've got a number of folk on the call here, and I'd be interested to hear what experience people have got, or if they haven't got experience to share, what they would love to see happen to have calls and meetings be more effective, more engaging, and something at least more akin to the experience of having that that genuine face-to-face in the same room, genuine room contact, if you like, that we used to have and enjoy.
Has anybody had a meeting that's a little bit different than the norm that they can tell us about?
Your comment, Bonnie, if you like.
Please.
So Andy Batera from New England Biolabs. We actually had our spring sales meeting last week, and we've been looking for different sort of virtual team building events, and struggled to find something that worked. But we did virtual escape rooms with a group where basically we were broken into groups of, I think, about six to eight, something like that. And you connected with a person who was actually physically in the room, and they had a camera on them, and they walked around the room, and it was excellent actually. And it was a mixture of sort of, interacting with people, with the person who was actually physically in the room and doing all the sort of manhandling of the things you need to do to get out to the room. And then also, if she found a map or something like that, then she gave you a code, and you could pull that up on your screen. And that was excellent, really well done, and was much better than I was expecting, after the rest. That was one thing we did that, certainly the feedback we've had so far has been very positive.
Who organized that for you, Andy? Was it an external party?
Yeah, we worked with a third party. In fact, it was funny because it was only at the end of the meeting when we were sort of, we managed to escape with 1 minute to spare or something like that. And the host told us he was actually based in Budapest in Hungary. But we didn't know that at the time. We could have been anywhere in the world, but I thought she was in the US, but clearly not.
That's super cool. I do a lot of virtual escape rooms and scavenger hunts and drag queen bingo, for God's sake. Yeah, those are very popular. Has anybody else done anything cool? Has anybody seen a llama bomb yet?
What? You made that up.
So you can have a llama in, so you see everybody's pictures in front of you. Suddenly a llama will appear. You don't mention it. It's just a live llama in the screen. Half the people notice it, half the people don't. It's rather hysterical. And it lasts just a couple of minutes. It's got no value at all except to distract people and give them something new and fun to look at.
The equivalent of the basketball video that you play, and then a person dressed up as a chimpanzee or a gorilla or something comes in the shot, and half the people half don't.
Yeah.
Love that one. So do people have experience then of meetings that are international and in fact also multi-continental? So meetings that span, say, North America, Europe, and Asia, because there's cultural differences there, and people have different expectations of meetings, if you like. And I just wonder what experience people have had in making meetings work when they are not so much across time zones. I think we're all used to that, but when you have these the cultural differences, which are I think easier to handle, if you like, and easier to accommodate when you're face to face than on a Zoom, perhaps, because you don't have such a feeling of what people are thinking, if you like, and feeling on a call. So I just want to know what experience people have had of that. I can see April, you're nodding your head there. That's a great giveaway. It's funny. That's the advantage of being on the screen. You see, you've just done what I hope people would do, and that you just actually acknowledged something. So tell us what you acknowledged then. Yeah, okay, that's good. Like the dance too.
You pretty much throw yourself out there as a person willing to answer. So the international calls are a little bit tricky because, first of all, you're fighting the technology. You've got to remember that there can be a 45-second delay, and you've just got to wait for the answer to move across and then come back. It's not always true, but sometimes there. And then you're struggling with the language barrier. I mean, here in the Northeast, I speak pretty quick. I'm used to going to a bar. Everybody's chit-chatting. My colleagues English is their third language, and I have to speak much more slowly. Sometimes we go to the chat and type in the words because they're not coming across clearly. and it just means really slowing everything down. And as a New Englander, I struggle with that a little bit myself.
Yeah, yeah.
We're fast moving
It's a
on
good
this
point.
coast.
Right, right. Emily, you're doing the same thing. You're acknowledging this one too. Do you have that same that experience, Emily?
No, I'm just chuckling because I'm originally from Massachusetts, and I have moved to Atlanta, and I now live in the Midwest, and I still think I speak pretty quickly for most people that I.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, you Americans, you can speak so quickly with such fantastic diction. I admire it.
Despite all the challenges, I think we should be pretty thankful for what we have. Imagine if this pandemic had happened 15 years ago.
We're in 1918.
Or imagine what it was like in 1918. But back then, but even a mere 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, this whole thing would have been a lot more challenging to conduct business smoothly.
And
But not only that, it would have lasted a lot longer. How fast did we create vaccines this time around too? That's amazing. All of our companies have been probably played some sort of part in that, which is just phenomenal.
Well, that's
Wouldn't just do it on MySpace, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, to David's point, in terms of scientific timing, I mean, 10 years ago we would have been, whoa. That would have been difficult. That would have been very difficult.
I don't know if anyone read the book The Code Breaker by Walter Isaacson. It's a fantastic book about the discovery of CRISPR technology, and it focuses on Jennifer Doudna, who's a Nobel laureate here at UC Berkeley. And it's a fantastic study in, competition, but also in collaboration, and how these tools that we use made collaboration, even during a pandemic, wildly successful, and earned her and her partner, Emmanuel Chapoutier, a Nobel Prize. So it's pretty amazing.
We can do, there are so many ways that we can engage each other that we couldn't have done before there was Zoom. And before the infrastructure existed, even in countries like, I do a coffee tasting and a virtual coffee tasting on a farm in Costa Rica. And this small family of farmers have a whole setup to walk around, and we do this whole sprout to spout, seed to spout, where, we learn, you can learn about, or at least enjoy all of the whole process. And then I send everybody coffee and a little pour over thing. And so we couldn't have done that. Even 5 years ago, they didn't have that infrastructure in place down there. So yeah. So has anybody else got an event that they've done that's been fun? The escape rooms are great. Any kind of tasting. I've been working with Obama's personal chef from when they were in the White House, and sending all the ingredients, and everybody gets together and cooks lunch or dinner.
Wow. We've done a successful wine tasting where the wines were sent ahead, and then you spread them out, and they encourage you to have cheese and so forth. And I think that works well for a break and meeting your colleagues and so forth. And certainly during the pandemic, I joined Weight Watchers. Everything is virtual. There's conversations going on in this sort of format, but there's also conversations going on in the chat. And it actually becomes very friendly as long as everyone agrees that we're going to show our photo. It is a very different environment, though, when you go to a work meeting. So now the tasks are very defined. People may or may not have their screens up. I find the work meetings are much more challenging than staying in touch with friends and family.
And that's really the point, is how do we do that at work? How do we find ways? And one of the things you're talking about having our cameras on, about having a tasting, about having engaging conversations, there's no reason we can't do that at work. We just have to make it happen. All my business calls are interactive. I don't like a webinar myself where it's just one head and you listen. This is a perfect example of chunking, what we're doing right now. We went from me talking to Mark talking to having a smoothie, and now we're all engaged in a conversation, and there's no reason we can't do this at work.
We have at Zybar, we have what's called a virtual coffee date pairing. So everybody subscribed to this channel in Slack called Coffee Pals. And then the system auto assigns a random pair of two people to connect every week. And you can opt in and opt out as you wish. And then there's a photo contest afterwards for each week who has the most creative or funny photo, and it's put up to the vote. So there's like multi-level of engagements happening there. And I find it pretty rewarding just to catch up like with the dev team. Like I'm in sales and marketing, and then just to be able to talk to the dev team every once in a while is really rewarding.
You're connecting. You're not just having a meeting together. You're not just listening to somebody tell you the data that they need you to download into your brain. And you're downloading the data better, and you're retaining it longer because of that, because these are now people you know that you have a connection with. I love it.
I do think it's kind of axiomatic. You've got a meeting with people, then we want to hear the people and see the people, technology permitting, of course. And right now on my screen, I can't see everyone's face because the tabulation lets you see what, 6 at a time, or plus you, Bonnie, no, including you, Bonnie. So I don't know how many other folk. I scroll across and see who else is. I don't know, most people on the camera. Yeah. And then you got still pictures in there. Well, that's fine. And I've got the top half of Greg's head. Hey, Greg, you want to move the camera down a bit?
It's nice to see that, right?
But you know, it's you can bring people. You can if people are there and the cameras are on, then it's much more likely that people are present.
I'm wondering, I've got a question for this team. How about those of you who've had to conduct or have been part of a training program, where you're learning about a new product or a new technology or something like that? I'm curious what challenges you have faced in that endeavor, both in terms of being on the receiving end or being on the giving end. I'm sure many of you have done that. Some of you even specialize in that. I saw Susan Bish on the line, for example, and I'm sure she has one or two experiences to maybe share. But I'm just curious how effective, or what tricks you've used or tools you've used to make it very effective.
Hi, David. Craig Dobbs. Yeah, with Repligen. This very much.
You look familiar.
Yeah, it impacted us very much doing a product launch just last week. And the team I was on, I think where we ended up going was to oversimplify everything. We had about 45 sales reps on the call, and in going through it and practicing it a number of times, what we ended up doing really was just oversimplifying it, because there isn't that live feedback, ability to clarify, and something that we certainly experience is not everyone is engaged at the same level at the same time like they are in a big meeting room. There are great distractions that happen, whether it's cats walking across the keyboards or kids in the background, or the ubiquitous Amazon delivery guy ringing the doorbell. And so we just oversimplified everything. And then our backside was simply, if the reps come back to us with questions that require greater depth, let them do that individually. And then we'll put up an FAQ where they can circle back. But just our experience was we were losing people when we were trying to do the classic in-depth, comprehensive, full-blown product launch. So this was just kind of a real skim, and it seemed to go very well. And to that point, we had a flood of questions later on as to requiring greater depth, but it was all manageable.
That's a good point. I sure hope that's a virtual background, Craig, because the thought of you in a lab is downright scary.
Yeah, so it's been 30 years, but it makes me feel smart, David.
Okay, good, Craig.
It makes you look smart. And Craig,
I
that's
think Craig brings up a really good point. Bonnie, you and I had talked to this as we were starting to prepare this. It's like there's some stuff you should plan to do in a meeting like this. And
that's where I was going.
go ahead, then I'll let you finish. You're the expert.
Okay. No, not necessary, but yeah, that's a brilliant way to do it, Craig, is to just touch on everything so you're not overloading. Another way to do it is to send all that data in advance. Send out the information. There's tons of ways to exchange the monotonous information before and then work on the discussing during. But I agree with you that you don't have, not everyone is comfortable engaging in this format. But remember, not everyone's comfortable engaging in person either. There are introverts. There are people who are learning just by listening. And those of us who learn by being part of the discussion, but this then works for everybody. But yes, send out that information, share it by email, share it by carrier pigeon. This is not always the best format for full-on data dumping.
No, I mean,
Comment.
sorry, Andy, go on.
Oh, go ahead, Stephen.
No, I was going to say, just following on from what Craig said, was interesting about oversimplification. So I had to do a lot of training. She kicked off a huge program last year, around about the time the pandemic started, and had to immediately repurpose what would normally be 2-day training sessions to online. So 2 days online, not going to work. So 2 days becomes 5 hours. So does that mean simplification? Well, that's really dangerous, and obviously we don't want to do that. So therefore, it's a massive reconfiguration, which led to actually greater involvement through more breakout sessions, and asking more of the delegates. And in fact, there are many areas of the training that became, frankly, more effective as a result of that, which was, as a result of the necessity, which was fascinating. But the other challenges you mentioned, Craig, are there, and that is that yes, we get engagement and we can test that engagement, but in the moment, you're never quite sure how many people you really got along with you, and you might have 40, 50 people, and how can you know? You simply can't at that time, and that part is tricky. So, hey, thank goodness we've got a vaccine, and these meetings will be not our only method of communication in the future.
Well, the hope is that we take these lessons into our live meetings.
Yeah.
Because all of the things we're talking about now are just as applicable to live meetings. I learned these lessons by conducting live meetings. It just takes a while to translate it into virtual. Because it's new for us.
And that's a really good point. As Stephen said, we're starting to move back into live meetings. But so why are we still talking about virtual meetings, Bonnie?
Because they're never, ever, 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 ever going away. Live meetings are going to come back, but they're going to be hybrid, and they're always going to be hybrid. The good news is that I believe it's going to mean more people show up for your meeting. So if you have a hybrid meeting, if you had a virtual meeting that had 200 people attend, maybe you have 150 people attend, or even 100, but maybe 200 more virtually. And that'll include the people who don't have a travel budget. That'll include people who hate meetings. That'll include people who have small children at home. The CEO who's invited to 50 meetings and you're dying to get them in your room, but you're not going to get them on a plane. And she's not going to show up to your whole meeting, but maybe that one session that you really need him or her to be present in order to close that deal. They're going to show up. And we need to take these lessons that we've learned through this past year and translate them into both our live meetings and our hybrid meetings. None of this is going away. And your sales meetings, your monthly sales meetings are not going to be in person, or maybe they'll be partly in person. We're still going to be virtual. We are, for good or for bad, we are stuck with this. And I think it's going to be for good. I think you're going to expand your audiences. I think all of those people who weren't showing up are going to show up, and your on-site costs are going to go down because you're not going to be feeding 200 people. You'll be feeding 100 people.
And we saw this year too, just with the numerous amounts of different creative platforms that came out that allowed you to do things that we would never even think we would do on a computer screen before. How we could have meetings like this, or we can go to a webinar, or we can do a virtual table. Some places have you sit at a table and you can talk about that topic, and then you see another table and you can jump over there, or you can random match with somebody like we do at our Hoppin' events, where you're randomly selected to be talking with somebody else for 5 minutes to meet them, and maybe somebody you wouldn't have reached out to before. So there's new creative ways to engage with people that are coming up, and I think you're right. I think this is here to stay in some form or another. It'll be a blended hybrid situation.
Yeah.
Just one comment I was going to make on your comment. I agree with you that meetings of this type and hybrid meetings are definitely going to continue. I have certainly haven't got my head around this myself, but if you have 10 people who are in a room together and you have another 10 people who are virtually, I don't think the technology actually is good enough to achieve that in most conference rooms.
You're gonna, yeah.
I think there's going to have to be quite a bit of advance in conference rooms to allow the level of interaction you have in a forum like this.
Absolutely, and it's happening already. So while we're sitting home, the conference rooms are working on upgrading and updating their audiovisual and production capabilities. They're working on their internet bandwidth. They're working on their videography. That's where the costs are going to go up. That's where the hotels and the venues are going to make up for the money they're missing by needing to use bigger meeting rooms for smaller amounts of people in order to be safe. They're making less money in food and beverage. They're having fewer people attend. So they're all working that action hard. The other thing that becomes really, really important when we go hybrid is our moderators and facilitators. Someone who is not just on stage facilitating, but someone who is also just dealing with the virtual, to make sure that they're brought into all of the loops. And there are people who have spent the past year perfecting those skills. So it's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of new things. The major plug here is you need a meeting planner now. Really good one. Someone in orange, perhaps, that knows how to make a smoothie. But seriously, you need your you need your when you check out a hotel for the property, you need to spend a lot more time with your audiovisual team, or you need to bring in a production crew of your own that's familiar with hybrid. And then you need to make sure that the hotel is going to allow you to do that. So there's a lot more, there's more contract clauses and more vendors that are coming into place. Lower costs in some areas, but the venues will make up for it in other areas. So triple and quadruple check your contracts. They have all changed. And there's lots of sneaky things like cleaning fees that are showing up in contracts like they didn't clean before. So now they're charging you an extra percentage to clean.
And I think the point is too, it's really the people that are behind the scenes that you don't see in these meetings that are becoming more and more important. As we have somebody today behind the scenes helping us out, right, Bonnie? And
we need help.
You need that. They don't necessarily are seen, but they're making sure that things are running in the background, music's playing, things are going on track, because the people that should be on camera need to be engaged with what they're doing, and they can't follow everything and do everything because
I can't keep an eye. Yeah, I can't host a meeting and keep an eye on the chat and move you into breakouts and bring you back on time and mute you and unmute you and run my slides. I mean, I can, but it would be really uncomfortable to watch, and I'd be super stressed.
So do we have any questions from anybody else out there? Something you've been dying to ask and just hadn't? Otherwise, we'll start calling on people, because this is interactive, whether you have your camera on or not.
I have a quick question, I guess. Bonnie, you mentioned extroverted versus introverted learning, right? I'm just wondering how people are tracking their engagement levels or engagement metrics. Like, what are people using to better understand, like, is engagement going up or down, and based on what factors?
I think it depends a lot on what you're doing. So if we're having a meeting like this, where it's, a couple dozen people, we can track that just by saying, okay, well, Stephen talks a lot, Bonnie talks a lot, I haven't heard from Emily yet. That kind of thing. In a larger sense, I have not seen any technology come up that's showing you who is in the discussions, who is interacting.
So I actually have.
Thank you, Mark.
And this was actually quite a few years ago even already, but it's usually on the platforms for the webinars where you have hundreds or thousands of people. The speaker gets an indication bar that says, what is the level of engagement and how the platform worked. And I don't recall which one it was, and I don't want to give a plug for one over another. But what it basically did was looking to see if it was on camera, it was tracking head movement or something like that. And again, this was mostly webinars. So it also looked at, did someone bring another window up in front of the webinar window because they're checking their mail or doing something else. So they were tracking engagement that way and giving you a score so that you could kind of see throughout the event when you had the most engagement and when you started to lose people. So
Interesting.
it's still, that was a few years ago. And like I said, I don't remember which platform it was, but they were doing that a while ago. It's rudimentary, but at least it was giving the speaker an idea that, oh, you lost some people, maybe change it up, say something to get people off their email and doing back to the main window.
And you can get the basic stats, who left, who came in, how many people came in on any of the platforms.
Average, yeah.
That leave button is our enemy. That leave meeting button, we used to have to pretend to get a call and slip out of the back of the room. We used to have, you used to look at your watch broadly and go, and then slip out of the back of the room. Now you don't have to say anything. You just disappear. And it's terrible for those of us putting on the meetings, but it's wonderful for those of us who have had enough. So yeah, I would love to talk further to Mark and maybe we'll try to figure out what that platform was and send out an email. I'm going to interrupt. April asked if anyone has attended a successful trade show. Those virtual booths are mostly a failure. I have two companies that I've worked with that do a really good job, Remo and Innovia. Innovia is a newer company, but they've been doing a great job with virtual trade shows, a little more engaging, a little more able to track and get people to feel like they're in a real room. But that's going to take live, I think, before that's ever really, really good.
Yeah, my experience, I agree with Jenny. If you look at Jenny's comment that if you can get a speaking slot, it makes a big, big difference. That's been my observations with some of my clients.
Yeah, a speaking slot or an engaging activity.
I think if you think about trade shows, people went to a trade show and into the booth. If it was a conference and there was a trade show component to it, that is where they put the coffee. That is where the box lunches were. So there was a reason to draw people onto the trade show floor. And companies were giving out things, right? You could physically walk away with something. So now you have all those challenges in a virtual booth because people now are sitting in the webinars from around the world and now they have a break. Well, they have to go to the bathroom. They may have to do lunch. They might have to check on the kids' homework that they're working on and stuff like that. They're not going to take the time to go there because there's nothing specifically drawing them to that virtual booth area. A lot of companies have tried gamification where they're giving stuff away. You can put your business card in the box and they're still going to ship you something afterwards. But well, I was actually quite surprised because I didn't expect much from it, but we've actually had some luck at some trade shows, and I can't recall which ones at the top of my head, that I was actually quite surprised that we had better metrics than I was expecting from these, because I've been hearing, the same thing. But most of the responses we've been getting was basically just brand awareness from that perspective, to be able to get your brand message out there and kind of change what you're doing from your booth, as opposed to highlighting an instrument or highlighting a product. Talk about your brand, talk about your company and some other things, and get awareness out there.
And I would say, yeah, that Jenny and April and David both have really the best points here. One is get a speaking gig if you can. The other is put up a poster if you can, so your content is out there. The other thing is to invite people to your own Zoom room as opposed to being on that trade show floor. Allow them to link out and do a chocolate tasting with a demo in the middle. Do a game with do chunk it. Something interesting, something delicious, something interesting, something engaging. And I find if you give people a job, they show up, as in, please join our advisory board for this. And if you send someone, one more time, if you send something to someone that has some value, it doesn't have to be a lot of value, they feel more obligated to show up. So if you send them a pound of coffee and invite them to have a cup of coffee with you, or a box of chocolate, or a bottle of wine, or something, depending on where your budget is, it could be small, but there's a sense of obligation to show up once somebody spent money on you. And I've seen that play out over and over again, that we're getting so much more attendance in meetings. I'm creating advisory boards all over the place, client advisory boards. People show up for those.
And Bonnie, I was going to say too, we've
Hi,
had
Greg.
we've had the most success with running our own seminars, our own trade shows, if you will, where we invite customers with a good application for our products to speak. We advertise who they are, just as if this were, Prep 2020, and we send out and say, here's the list of speakers, and to our mailing lists, to I don't know if we've ever bought a meeting. I'm not in marketing, so I'm not sure if we've ever bought a mailing list to do that with. But the attendance has been great. Because of the applications, the engagement is really high. And because of the strength of the speakers and the people that they bring in, I've certainly gotten a few very good leads to move forward with it. So that's been we totally backed off from doing virtual trade shows because there just was no payback whatsoever, none.
I'm seeing the same. And yeah, when you get peers to, when you get your clients to do peer presentations to each other, that's a huge draw, especially best practices. People want to show up for those. What do you, for a current customer, what are you doing now that's working and what isn't? And for new customers, what's the best application for this? Yeah, that's really been successful. That's great. Great.
And the story's the same. It's how do you add value to draw them? That hasn't changed. It's just how we do it is different now.
Yeah. How do we get our clients to show up at meetings in real life? It's just, you just have to find a way to translate that into virtual.
Well, as we're coming to the end of our time together, I just wanted to point out some of the future webinars we have on track right now at SAMPS.org. Please go visit our site for more details on these, but our next one is June 4th, Navigating Google Ads and Analytics for the marketing folks. And then in July, we'll have marketing dashboards and getting new customer retention going forward in August, and marketing and applications on account-based in September. So some of these are still subject to change, but keep a pulse on what we're doing. We've also launched our new newsletter now that's coming out. And that went out this week, I believe, and we have a lot of great resources on the site for whether you're in sales or marketing, and a lot of great people to reach out to, and some of our sponsors and vendors as well. Any last words, Bonnie?
Yeah, I have a couple of pet peeves I'd like to discuss with you. Give me just 1 second, because we have the same ones. Sorry about that. All right, slides. Very important when we're on virtual. Please don't post a slide and read it. It's distracting, annoying, and defeats the purpose of our time together. Instead, send the slides in advance or after the fact. This is supposed to be a conversation. If you must post a slide, don't pack it so full of information that it's impossible to read. Bullet points are enough if you need reminders. So that's my biggest pet peeve on virtual meetings. Send that information in advance. And then, of course, the main point of this conversation. Never forget the words of Socrates when he said this meeting should have been an email. Don't waste the time. Use your time wisely together. When you put together your agenda, think about what could have been sent out in advance and what requires face time. Make that face time valuable. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you all so much for coming. It was great to see all your faces. Some of you I haven't seen in a while, and hope to see you at the next SAMPS meeting, the live one.
Very
Wow.
good. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Greg.
Bye.
Hi, Greg.
Hi.
I'll call you later.
I can't find